Hello, everyone. Tonight's story is about Burma, a British company called Premier Oil, and Robin Cook. Now, and Robin Cook, I've got to say, oh, great, we're amongst friends, hooray! Burma, I mean, what can you say? It's a military junta there. It's one of the most repressive regimes in the world. Aung San Suu Kyi won the democratic elections and then was promptly fucking in prison. They've got extrajudicial killings going on all over the place. The regime in Burma is so bad, that Britain does not sell arms to them. We wanted to meet, you know, a representative from the Burmese regime. So we thought, well, let's phone up the Burmese ambassador. You know, so we phoned up and said, hello, we're a television company. Wondered if we could do an interview with you. We just wanted to provide you with a platform to express your views. And it's a great honour to be here talking with the ambassador of the Union of Myanmar, His Excellency, Dr. Win. Pleased to meet you, Dr. Win.
Pleased to meet you, Mark.
Thank you very much. We've got, just if I may, we've got some gifts. I know that sometimes it's traditional to give gifts, and we've brought...
How very kind of you.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Wonderful.
This is, we've got here, this is a traditional British food. So you must eat this today.
Right.
I understand that your appointment has been fairly recent to London.
That's correct, yes.
And so this is called tripe, and this is a traditional food that is eaten particularly in the north of England.
Is that so?
And we've got the best tripe for you.
Really?
And this is the best way to cook it is to boil it. Let's see. So we've bought that. Maybe it might be an idea to refrigerate it if that's at all possible.
Right.
If I could hand that to one of your assistants, if we could refrigerate that.
Really,
Also,
how very nice.
I've been told that the people of Myanmar are very, very big football fans.
Yes.
And we have some people who are friends of ours who have managed to get this. I wonder if I could just give you this. This is the... And if you yourself you aren't a football fan, I'm sure that there'll be someone who can appreciate it.
I certainly am.
This is...
But my children are even bigger fans than me.
Oh, are they? Well, this is the Manchester United strip. We've got full strip here. And I'm quite proud of this. We've managed to get it signed by David Beckham and his wife.
Oh, my goodness. So, my son's going to be crazy about this.
This is his...
This is a name that I hear almost every day in the home, you know?
That's right. This is Beckham, and his wife here has she's just put posh from her stage note. I just had visions of the embassy that night. Tripe, ambassador, you are spoiling us. Myanmar has this perhaps... As a nation, it is a new nation, a developing nation, from the womb.
That's quite right. You know, like trying to offer the best and the most nutritious kind of food. You know, that is probably the most nutritious kind of food for an adult to a newborn, like you were saying. The young infant will not be able to digest any solid food. I mean, not even a steak or a chop that we would appreciate very much.
So if the West tries to impose its values, it is in effect feeding solids to a baby, which is completely inappropriate.
Yes, this is the main point that I'm having to put up to a lot of people out here. And at the same time, you know, because of the cultural and philosophical differences between the East and the West.
Just hold it there. This is the recurrent theme, the cultural differences. And whenever you talk to regimes like this, like the Burmese regime, and you try to get them to explain the human rights abuses, the argument they always come up with is they say, the West just don't understand the cultural differences. Oh, it's culture. It's culture, fine. Like the Welsh have got male voice choirs, the French have got cuisine, and Burma's got the National Army all-formation torture team. Fine. Fine. You can't say, it's cultural differences. Because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is universal. It's not regional. You know, otherwise, you know, serial killers in Britain will be commuting to fucking go to work. You know, just over to Burma, love. All right, have a good day. Get back. What was it like? Oh, it was murder. And the journey, very bad. How important, on a scale of 1 to 10, is internal security?
Oh, I would put it almost absolute at this moment. Because we...
So nearly a 10?
Yes, nearly a 10. I would put it nearly a 10. Yes.
And it is to be sought,
yes,
to extend an olive branch of peace. But for that olive branch of peace to be effective, in the other hand, you need to have a machine gun that will actually be there to force them to accept peace. Because you cannot just say we will be peaceful and let insurgents rise against you.
In a way, Mark, you're very right.
For the olive branch of peace, for the carrot, if you like, the
yes.
reward, you have to have actually used the stick of law and order.
In our case, this has actually happened in practice.
And for people to take the carrot, they often have to be beaten to actually get them to
yes.
force to take the carrot. That's the reality. Do you think we should be frightened of that reality?
Well, I don't think being frightened doesn't really bring in any benefit. You just have to be practical about things, face the situations with courage.
And you know, he was talking about internal security. One of the big threats to internal security was there are 2 comedians in Burma, and they were sentenced to 20 years for telling jokes. Sentenced to 20 years for telling it. That's a fuck of a heckle, isn't it? I mean, I've been heckled 20 years. Shame when cousins marry. Ha-ha, 30. It's just 20 years for telling a gag, man, you know, that's incredible. That's kind of, you know, what we should do, I really believe that we should do this, we should start to heckle the Burmese ambassador. En masse as a nation. Start at the top, right, because the Queen gets to meet him, right, and Prince Philip, he'll say anything, wouldn't he? I'm pleased to meet you, Ambassador. I've shagged your mum. In the supermarket, will the Burmese ambassador please leave the building as his moral turpitude is actually upsetting the shoplifters? Is it 20 years, man? For that sentence to be just, that joke had to have killed somebody. You just got to Burmese bank robbers going to the bank. Give me the money, get on the floor. That's a dead parrot. It's not dead, it's pining. I'll do the whole routine. You know, how dangerous is this? If we can go back to the analogy of the baby.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to force feed the carrot.
Yes, you're right.
When certain groups and certain sections of Western society try and deny Myanmar's right to defend itself and Myanmar's right to equip itself for internal security, it seems to me they're very short-sighted. Because if the West is saying to the security forces in Myanmar, you cannot have this gun, you cannot have this equipment, then that means that security is compromised. If security is compromised, that could mean people actually die as a result of that.
Yes.
And it is quite important to actually say, if you don't get the guns to the soldiers, people die.
That's true. That's true, especially when you're having to deal with these terrorizing acts of sudden desperate insurgents.
They're almost taking the carrot
Yes.
out of the mouth, aren't
That's
they?
right. That's right.
The danger of allowing people to actually vote for whoever they want, regardless of the consequence, is immense. It's almost patronising
Yes.
to force the vote upon them.
Exactly right. And in Southeast Asia, this system has been already in existence in Thailand and in Indonesia. Because at this time, they just don't feel that the political maturity of people have reached that stage where everybody ought to be elected.
I remember when we were filming this, when he starts talking about, you know, the comparable regimes, including the military and democracy, and he cites Indonesia, I did think, when I get home, I'm going to phone up the Indonesian embassy and just say, look, I know you've got a few problems at the moment, but the good news is Burma thinks you're a role model. If I could use the analogy of a plant, that democracy, whether it be Eastern or Western,
Yes.
is like a plant in the living room. You need to tend to it, you need to care to it, you need to clean it,
Yes.
you need to water it.
Exactly.
Sometimes if the plant is sick, you need to turn the heating up.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need to cut back on the water if you've given it too much.
Yes, of course.
But you also need to prune it.
That's right.
You need to clip it.
You need to do
need
that.
to make sure that it knows where it is, that it doesn't expand everywhere,
Yes.
and that if you just allowed a plant to grow willy-nilly, you would just have a plant anarchy within the room. The plant
Yes.
would be everywhere.
Yes.
And the plant needs to be clipped.
Right.
Would you
Roses-
agree with that
I
analogy?
would agree with that. Roses have to be pruned to make them look, like beautiful roses.
And this is an intelligent man, isn't it? You can tell he's a well-educated, intelligent man. So we got on talking eventually on the subject of the 1990 election and Aung San Suu Kyi, who won the election, and we got talking about why the Burmese military didn't hand over power and why they imprisoned her. And these were his thoughts on that subject.
The military government organized it. The military government never participated in that election. It was not the government against the opposition. It was between some political parties. And the election was held not for transfer of power. The government was trying to create a new constitution for the country, which must be overseen by an elected assembly. And this was the idea. And as soon as this party won the elections, they immediately demanded transfer of power to them, and which was denied, of course. So they went underground, and it is still propagated out here that the election that this party and these people won have not been been installed into power as a government. This was never intended to be for transfer of power.
But this
That
is
was the only
entirely
idea.
natural for a new country to
Yes.
do. You wouldn't automatically just do something straight
Yes.
away if you're a new country. You would practice it.
Yes.
You would see how it worked. So if you are going to bring in an element of democracy, it would be important to have a trial run to see how it
Exactly right.
works. If, for example, you were, say, an athlete and you threw the javelin, you wouldn't just pick up a javelin and run with it and hurl with it.
No.
You'd practice first with some darts that were small. Would that be a fair analogy?
Yes, that would be a very fair analogy.
There's been lots of calls for economic sanctions on Burma, and quite a few countries have actually withdrawn from Burma and they've disinvested. PepsiCo has pulled out. Michael Jackson, had a word, don't like it. Levi pulled out. Ericsson, British Home Stores. British Home Stores, yo, way to go. You know what I mean? Whoa, static on the blouse, but politically fucking sound. But there's a British company still in Burma, and this British company is called Premier Oil. They're a medium-sized oil company. They're involved in a pipeline that runs in the southeastern part of Burma, from Burma into Thailand. This is a heavily militarised zone. It's a zone where a lot of the human rights abuses are taking place. And it's this deal with Premier Oil is going to give the Burmese military regime about $120 million. So if you haven't followed the argument so far, it's they get the oil to get the money, they get the money to get the guns, they get the guns to give to the soldiers, they get the soldiers to make sure they protect the people. They protect the people so they don't ask for democracy. I don't know why. She swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die. Right. We wanted to ask a few questions to Premier Oil about their involvement in it. What we did was, obviously companies don't like coming out for us. They're reticent. And so what happened, we met this lovely Buddhist monk, and he handed in a letter to Premier Oil, and we kind of piggybacked along. And so when he handed in the letter, we turned up and said, oh, do you mind if we film it? And this guy who was in charge of their global social policy said, no, that's fine. I said, can we just ask you a few questions? He said, no. I said, well, come on, just a few. No. I said, can you just hold this? And gave him this great big fucking metal box. And so he's standing there holding this metal box. I've lifted the lid and we've got a video recorder inside. I said, will you just have a look at this? And just press play, and he's standing there with this box. I'm going to show you the tapes that we played him. If you don't believe this report, the one thing that I'd ask you to think of is, if you think she's lying, ask yourself one question. What level of atrocity has to be occurring for her to think she can get away with the lie?
Nopobe, her husband, her son, her cousin, and some of the villagers were captured by the Burmese soldiers in the beginning of February '97, and they all tied up by the Burmese soldiers. Especially my friend Nopobe was tied up, and the Burmese soldiers gang raped her in front of her husband. And then in front of Nopopis and her husband, they cut off the baby's heart, and that they cut off the baby's heart with a knife, and then put the baby heart over the fire, and they gave it to Nopopis and her husband to eat, and swallowed the flesh or the heart of the babies, their own babies.
The other tape that we got was from Aung San Suu Kyi, a name you've heard tonight and probably heard a lot before. And this tape was smuggled out of Burma.
Investing in Burma at this time in any way is tantamount to encouraging the military regime, which is against a transition to democracy. Apart from the actual revenues that it brings to the government, it also constitutes a psychological boost, because it makes the government feel that however repressive they may be, they still have the support of big companies, or at least one or two big companies.
Then we get on to saying hello to Premier. Watch the guy's face. Not a happy bunny, as he shouldn't be.
So Premier Oil, by coming into Burma at this time, does a great disservice to the cause for democracy.
So that was Aung San Suu Kyi, as you know, who is the democratically elected leader of Burma, asking you not to be in Burma.
Right. I recognise Aung San Suu Kyi, and the company's position's always been that that they're open to dialogue. In fact, our chief executive has been in dialogue with Aung San Suu Kyi and has made our position and the productive investment that we have in Myanmar quite clear.
Did she ask the chairman if Premier would leave?
It was the chief executive, and obviously I wasn't privy, I wasn't part of the meeting. So really, I would have to refer specific questions to Charles Jameson, our chief executive.
I appreciate that.
To answer that, but again.
What
Premier has been in dialogue with Aung San Suu Kyi.
Yeah, but she's asked you to leave, and I just wondered, what would it take for Premier to leave?
I think it's inappropriate for me to try and speculate on
Robin
an answer
Cook has actually
at this point of time.
The Foreign Office called Premier in and asked you not to go in, not to be there, didn't he?
Again, I don't have that information. If I could just refer you to our chief executive,
but
who
he said on the
possibly
Today
should
programme that you should
be privy to that information.
He said on the Today programme, he said, we called in Premier Oil and we said, look, don't do it. You've been asked by the Foreign Office, you've been asked by Aung San Suu Kyi, these people here have testified to the brutality of what's happening in that region. What does it take?
If I can just reiterate that, I am not the person who's privy to that information, so I couldn't agree or disagree with what you're saying. So it puts me in an awkward position.
After we did that, he started phoning us and having chats and explaining their policies. And he said something very interesting. He said, you said Robin Cook said that we shouldn't do it, that we shouldn't be in Burma. He said, well, I don't think that statement's entirely accurate. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. I said, because that would obviously change the focus of the show if we had evidence of that. He said, we've got some letters I could give you.
And we have been encouraging companies to recognise the reality of Burma and the reality of trading with it. We had actually that particular oil company to refer was summoned into the Foreign Office, and we had an exchange with the chairman of that company and explained to him the consequences of such investment. We actually had that company and I said, don't do it.
So Cook said this on the Today programme, bunged the letter up, because on the same day, Premier Oil, the chief executive, wrote to Cook saying at no time did he say or in any way suggest, don't do it, pull out, or words to that effect. Ooh. That means that Cookie could be lying. Someone's lying here, aren't they? So who do I believe, a multinational oil company who worked with dictators or Robin Cook? Oh, fuck it, can't I toss for it? The thing is here, is Cook is saying he called them in and said, don't do it. They had the meeting in the Foreign Office and said, don't do it. And they're saying, no, we didn't. So he thought, fuck it, we've got to ask Robin Cook, who's right? And now the chances of Robin Cook giving us an interview are about 0, if I'm optimistic. But with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of ingenuity, you can engineer a chance meeting. We've come up here, we would like to perform a short ceremony for you, and it's a healing ceremony at the moment.
And what is this going to do?
It's going to improve your health.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
So, would you like to do it? It would only take a minute or two.
And what are you going to do with this art?
You're going to show it on television.
Yeah, that bit I grasp. I can recognise the television camera. I've seen one before.
Right. What this will do, this is for spiritual healing, and it's a short ceremony, and it atones you for any sins, anything that you've done. And this in Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist religion will remove bad karma from you.
Can I just be clear, what are the sins that I'm supposed to have committed?
In this specific, this is specifically about your comments that were misleading on the Today programme.
I don't know
to just do a ceremony.
I don't know misleading comments on the Today programme.
Well, you did, I'm afraid.
No, I'm afraid I did not.
Well,
you're listening to Premier Oil.
No. This is because you said first of all, there was a minor factual inaccuracy, which was you said we brought the chairman in there. It was in fact the chief executive. That's a minor mistake.
No.
This
is a sin.
No. Let me just finish, please, Mr. Cook, because you then said we summoned them in to the Foreign Office, and actually they did apply for an interview. So they actually wrote requesting it. So it's not quite a summon. So it is slightly misleading. So on those two, I think it is. I think that's a slightly misleading.
You're not denying the fact that, let me make it clear, that we do not welcome Burma. They have no support from us in Burma. And indeed, if I may say so, under this government, trade with Burma is now down to a very small amount.
And
we have also made it perfectly clear.
Okay, just hold it there for a sec. Watch and see if he answers the question. Simple question. In the meeting with the Foreign Office and Premier Oil, did you say don't do it? Just see if he answers that question. No one in the Foreign Office said don't do it.
They shouldn't
Premier Oil.
They shouldn't be doing it.
No, they shouldn't, but you didn't say to them don't do it, and you did say that on the Today programme, didn't you?
Premier
you did say that.
Premier Oil, under no doubt at all.
But you did,
they are not
did say
I'm very happy
to
say don't do it to Premier Oil.
Well, but you hadn't said that to them,
I said it to 2 million people in the Today programme.
But you hadn't said it to them at the time, had you?
Well, I'm very happy to say it now again.
So first of all, would you firstly just say that you didn't, when you said, you said to them don't do it, the Foreign Office hadn't actually said that to them,
I'm going to make quite clearly, we do not approve of what Premier Oil is doing. They know that perfectly well. We would much rather they stopped. And they know that also perfectly well. Thank you very much.
Would you do the ceremony for you, Mr. Cook? And what's great though, as far as I'm concerned, it's great because he doesn't deny the accusation. But more than that, he then goes on to say, I'm quite happy to say it here and now, they shouldn't be here. So he said, first of all, he said, he basically sort of like kind of hides over the fact that he didn't tell them to go. And now he's turned around and said, yes, we are telling them to go. As far as I'm concerned, that's a fucking win-win. He doesn't manage to wriggle out of it, and now Premier Oil, you're back under the fucking spotlight. The interesting question is this. The Labour government are being taken to court by the Burma campaign group. They're taking them to judicial review. And they're taking them to court for one thing, and that is the British government have said they haven't got the legal right to impose economic sanctions on Burma. And the campaign group are having to take them to court to prove they have. That's kind of weird when the government are fighting a group of people saying we don't think we have the right to do the sanctions that we've said we would, but we're not doing.
Tatiambi Potandra Nangisami, Tatiambi, Tamandra Nangisami, Tatiambi, Gangambra Nangisami, Panati Pataurami, the Kavran Madiami, Adina Tanaurami, the Kavran Madiami, Kamidu Misasara Urami, the Kavran Madiami, Mudawara Urami, the Kavran Madiami, Turami.